Hi, everybody. Um, I'm not quite sure what happened there. I was pushing the computer back and the recording stopped. So I'll just start all over again uh, and just say, my name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk about Vedic astrology and how it affects you in particular and how it affects the world in general. And and we'll go from there. I am working with Saptarishi Astrology. This is just in the near future. So today is August the 12th, 2023. So in late September, mid October, Saptarishi Astrology will probably be doing a workshop on a 2 day presentation, excuse me, on retrograde planets, that is, planets that appear to be moving backwards in the sky as we see them from Earth. So, if you're interested in presenting on that particular topic and you're an astrologer, please contact me. It's sort of an open forum. We are asking for PowerPoints before, well in advance of the actual presentation itself, so that we can see what's being covered, what's being duplicated, and that we can have essentially the best presentation quality we can have. So if you are interested, just you can contact me at this YouTube channel or just send me an email at GaryGomesG@gmail.com, or you can just text me or call me at 508-525-0001. Still working on a book, still working on getting the school up. I am not offering excuses. I'm just saying it's been a wild year and a half for me. I'm in a sati, so some of those who you've been to, who know what that is, know what that's like. But it's I'm determined, and it will happen. Both will happen. Uh, I also do have upcoming interviews with Alan Anand, John and Alan. I'm reading through your book now, and Alan's just written a really excellent book on the karma or desire houses in astrology and how those affect the chart. So I'll be interviewing Alan. We're going to have a group of Heart to Full students uh, um, have a forum on Heart to Full. And I'm also going to be talking with Jean Kalazian and Lolita Donatello Rybak. Lolita will be lecturing at the Raman Institute uh, in, I think it's late September or early October. You'd have to look at that. Look up the Astrological e-magazine for dates of that event. And I think that's about it for news right now. So let's get on to it because it's been a pretty difficult week for a lot of people, especially in the United States, but not only in the United States, but also around the world. And so the first thing I want to mention was I mentioned there were some really difficult lines passing through um, Hawaii. And actually, the Hawaii line, I was kind of surprised at because I said to myself, well, geez, they've had volcanoes. I mean, are they going to, what else is going to happen? And it seemed like it was fire activity, and my mind immediately leaped to volcanoes, and it wasn't. They had a massive fire out there. Excuse me, let's try to suppress that sound. They had a massive fire out there in the middle of the week. Um, Earlier in the week, we had um, not to focus too much on the United States, but I hear the most about the United States because the United States does a really not so good job of covering the rest of the world, to be honest. But Peru, there was a presidential assassination, uh, and uh, Italy is talking about leaving the European Union. They're actually setting it up, I believe, right now. Germany's talking about breaking it up or talking about revising it. And that's really the powerhouse economy in Europe. So that's still speculative. Nobody really knows if that's true or um, just machinations of somebody. And they are worried about far right candidates getting into more. I'm sorry, I think this is more the story. They're worried more about far right candidates getting more EU seats. That's what I think is the actual story. And Niger, I mispronounced that last time. Niger is being attacked, but they also held back on supplies. The United States is apparently agreeing with France, so we could have a tangential involvement in a war or in a police action in Africa, which to me sounds insane. It sounds like an insane way for the United States to go, but I've seen crazier things in my life. And obviously, the war in the Ukraine is still happening, is still occurring. Hopefully, that'll be resolved, but I don't see it being really any progress. Excuse me, any progress being made for a few months, unfortunately. I don't think we're going to see any real clarity about that particular mission for a few months. In the United States, we had so these are all things. One of the things that one of the reasons I'm mentioning these is because these all sort of like popped up in last week's broadcast. Um, and let's just see if I can get the computer screen up. And I think there are also um, problems in Tajikistan as well. Um, and let me just see now where else. And trying to think. Oh, and of course we had the ongoing uh, Trump. Oh, there are problems in the government in Australia. There are problems in the government still in New Zealand. There are problems in the government in Afghanistan, which was not it's not a surprise. And there are increasing scandals coming out about, or there are allegations of U.S. interference with the government with the transition of the last prime minister in Afghanistan. Um, I just the military coup was in Niger. Um, and Sudan is still heating up. So these are all crisis areas that are essentially popping up a lot across the world and are reflected in the astrology chart. Now, if we look at this week, and I'm deliberately trying to slow down and speak more clearly and carefully. If we look at this week, we still have that Rahu Jupiter conjunction in the eighth house. So there are sneaky things happening all around the world. There are essentially um, efforts to manipulate things going on politically in, I would say, in a variety of countries, not just the United States. So, and when I say this again, I'm not exempting anyone from this. I'm not exempting um, the left or the right in this, or any one party. There's a lot of sneakiness. We have this Mars Mercury conjunction, which will be in effect for another um, 4 days. And we have the moon in a mutable sign. It's waning. It's very, very weak. So mutable signs are signs like Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. Are called Dvishabla signs in Vedic astrology, but essentially they mean they're signs in which planets change. And Mercury, the Lord of the first house. So we have the Sun right now in Cancer, along with Venus retrograde. So Venus has finally moved out of Leo, and a lot of pride is gone, but Venus is still aspected by Saturn, which makes it a difficult time for personal relationships. People's feelings are getting hurt very easily. There's a lot of miscommunication and a lot of lies going on, especially by people who have strong Leos or are influenced by people who have strong Leos. So you have this Mercury Mars conjunction, Rahu Jupiter. Rahu Jupiter essentially is a combination which will give a person whatever means, no matter how unethical they are, to do the right thing, to do what they believe is the right thing. Okay, so it's called the Guru Chandali Yoga in Vedic astrology. So you'll find a lot of people doing essentially sneaky things behind the scenes to do to either establish or disrupt things, and that's common to everybody. So these aren't partisan um, planets. They're not. They don't affiliate with a political party. Um, I think there's been a mistake made, um, and maybe I don't know who made it, but in attributing certain political parties to certain signs. After a while, uh, political parties have essentially the main goal of a political party is to get in power. So they can't do what they want to do unless they're in power, right? So this Saturn aspect in Jupiter, which is making them do stupid things. Jupiter next to Rahu, which is making them do unethical things. Mars next to Mercury, which is making them lie about it, or basically hide things out, hide things. And Sun and Venus, which essentially indicates a lot of justice activities are being twisted or perverted to meet governmental ends. So I think this is fascinating. Um, Also, in terms of the economy, K2 is still in this particular sign in Libra, which is connected with commerce very strongly. Saturn is still aspecting Mercury and Mars and Venus and Sun because it's retrograde. And I think one of the things you'll see is we've seen a return to inflationary pressure um, because gas prices in the United States have gone up, and the Saudis and the Russians are both working together to increase gas prices. So I think the energy issues are not going to go away. Inflation is not going to go away for a few months, at least. And I can see us entering a very fragile case like we did in the 1970s with a stagflationary environment. So hiring is starting to slow down in the United States. There's still a very low unemployment rate. I mean, so that has to be taken into account. But other countries are getting um, really hurt, especially by energy prices. That's especially true in Europe and in certain parts of the East, and certainly in South America. And I think one of the things you're seeing is that we're sort of like heading towards um, an economic downturn. Uh, I hesitate to use the word collapse because we don't have a large cluster of planets and moving towards one sign, which is usually needed for some kind of a collapse or panic. But I think when you see uh, Rahu will enter Pisces uh, in late November, early December. Ketu will enter Virgo around the same time. That will make the economy very vulnerable, and a lot of institutional shifts will occur around that time. Um, Maybe even earlier because we have um, a Jupiter retrograde coming up in September, which, although it can be good, it can also increase inflationary pressure, and Saturn will not be going. Saturn will not take its aspect off of Jupiter, so you'll have this kind of like what I would call overabundance of enthusiasm in September, and the Saturn essentially saying, no, we're not going to do anything. For those of you just in general who feel stymied or who feel lack of progress in your life, this is essentially the result of the Saturn in Aquarius aspect. So we're seeing all sorts of new inventions coming out. The one I mentioned last week was the superconductivity um, invention. There are other fascinating inventions coming out right now, but we're not hearing about them because we're too focused on this power struggle going on um, between expansionists and um, and globalists and people who want to essentially pull back and focus on their own country's needs. So this is going to be, and again, those factions exist on both sides of the political spectrum. They're not unique to either party. Um, so I think what you're seeing overall is it's going to be a big power mix, which will peak in around 2026. And the reason I'm picking that date is mainly because of the Saturn, um, roughly the Saturn Rahu conjunction happening. Um, and I think that'll be very interesting for us in terms of um, the long-term economy, but I don't think really we're going to see shifts or changes in the long-term economy until then. But there is a very strong danger of recession. I don't want to make people pessimistic. Um, and also keep in mind that even in recessions, there are always opportunities for growth. Okay, so again, just because there are storm signals on the horizon doesn't mean you can't do your work, you can't achieve your goals, you can't achieve your ambitions. It gets a little tougher. You have to refine and discipline yourself a little bit more, but you can still achieve what you want to achieve. Okay? All right, so let's go over to uh, the chart. So we have this Mercury as Lord of the first in the 12th house. So that indicates loss of position or more critical thinking. But again, there'll be a lot of in this Mercury Mars conjunction again. Um, I hate to focus so much attention on the media, but the media is essentially lying, or they're boosting up their ratings to set people against each other. Um, the media is not, at least in the United States, and I think around the world, it's not really. Um, they're an institution. They're an institution that doesn't necessarily oppose the governing institutions, and they won't necessarily report negatively on it. This is not a new phenomenon. Um, it's something that has been a trait of media for as long as I've been familiar with them, and even before I was born. It's really rare to see a media unify uh, against a president or against a corporation or against uh, anybody in power. The last time I saw it done in the United States before Trump was president was in the late 1960s or early 1970s, and even then, there were problems with that because um, some people who were connected with media who actually broke big cases, like Daniel Shore, um, and with the Pentagon Papers, actually got fired from his network for doing that. So um, I think one of the things to keep in mind is, although we've been taught, and freedom of speech is a remarkably wonderful thing. Essentially, freedom is determined by who has the most money to a very large extent in media conglomerations. And the people who have the most money or the most power tend to be corporations or or large or people with a lot of money. And I think that that's one of the reasons why you get very, very uh, unusual reporting from a variety of outlets. Uh, and so is there really a true, there are true media people out there, but they're kind of um, isolated. We also have that Saturn Mars aspect, and so there's more danger from fires. I'm not going to lie to you. And Saturn Mars aspect, Saturn aspecting Jupiter in a fiery sign, Jupiter aspecting Mars in a fiery sign. That's sort of like a setup for more fires or more danger connected with fire. So just be careful about that. Um, the one, what I was going to say is a positive thing. So this risk will actually increase within about 5 days when Sun enters Leo, because Sun will be in its own sign, aspected by Jupiter and Saturn. So you'll actually start to see uh, government and also uh, media sort of aligning very, very strongly. And also, you'll also see increased danger from fires um, or volcanoes or earthquakes because of this transition. Um, the danger from earthquakes really won't occur until around mid-September when the sun crosses into Virgo. And Saturn is really not influencing that, but I think Saturn aspecting Mercury for the next 4 to 5 days or so, or for the next 8 days or so, um, definite uh, problems with weather conditions. In terms of finances, I've already sort of gone over that quite a bit. And so, again, there will be some change in the economy. Again, we are looking for shifts in government. The I think the UK government will change within about a year. That's just my guess. And I think also, at least from what I've seen, there'll also be shifts in the Chinese government over the next year or so. Maybe in the Russian government, but not. It's not quite so strong. Um, United States government uh, definitely shifts. It's possible we might not see Joe Biden running again um, for family reasons. We have, interesting enough, this is Joe Biden's rising sign. This is his fifth house of children, Um, and in December, Rahu will enter his fifth house of children. Um, and I think it may be difficult for him to maintain his position. Um, it's not impossible, obviously, but Saturn's in his fourth house, aspecting his first. That's not a good sign either. And so this doesn't necessarily mean defeat at the hands of a Republican. This may be a voluntary stepping down. Um, and I know a lot of people have been predicting this, but it's starting to look more and more likely. We'll get a clearer idea after December, though. Okay. Um, a person like Donald Trump has many enemies. Uh, he's got he's got open enemies right now, and the Lord of his sixth house is in the seventh house. So that's why a lot of the indictments which have been building up over the past couple of years are coming up when the Saturn is retrograde. However, the other factor that Trump has working slightly in his favor is that he's in a Mercury Mahadasha where things can change quickly. Now, they can change quickly for the better or for the worse. Okay, so that's one thing I'm always really careful about discussing in terms of Mercury Mahadashas. So we may see him flip by this time next year because of, or before this, because of Rahu entering his, um, this is his rising sign, Leo. Rahu will enter his eighth house. So that may bury scandals or may bring more to light. Um, so it's really going to be interesting. But Jupiter is going to be entering his 10th house. That'll give him a little bit of an element of luck. But the planets on election day aren't particularly good for Trump. I'll be honest, I've already looked at that. So I don't know who's the next president's going to be. I'll talk about that. Or I don't know if President Biden's going to retain his position or somebody else from the Democrats or the Republicans will take over. It's just too mixed for me right now. And I'll look at that when I get to it. I'll look at that in a few months. I'll look at that probably in December when I have a clearer mind myself. So let's go to your individual charts. But again, like I said, another 8 or 9 years of this in the United States. A lot of disruption, a lot of quote unquote chaos. I still think we're experiencing it now. It's just a little bit less uh, melodramatic than it was uh, in 2020, 2021, and 2020, and uh, in 2020 and 2021 because people want the semblance of normalcy, and the media has been essentially trying to prop that up. And we're not back in a normal existence where, I'm just being truthful here. And that's because of the Mercury Mars conjunctions that have been sort of like following each other around the zodiac for the past few months. All right, so let's get on to the actual astrological signs. Aries has Jupiter. Where did that guy come from? All right. All right, so let's get there's another recording still on. All right, so Jupiter still sits in Aries. It hasn't changed at all. It's going to be there until next April. And that's actually good for Aries. It helps increase the luck of the sign. Rahu, however, and the Saturn aspect does frustrate it a little bit. The moon's in the third house. That'll give sort of a change or expenses connected with home life. Again, a lot of repeating themes. Sun and Venus are in the fourth house. Venus is retrograde, so there are some arguments with spouse or relationship partners or business partners during this time. Some feeling of going backwards and covering things that have already been covered before. Um, Mars and Mercury, some mixed luck because this sign will do whatever it needs to defeat its enemies. With Mercury and Mars in the fifth house, it actually has an advantage going into this. So it's going to be highly competitive. It's going to be highly lucky, but not as ethical as probably it should be. And but again, very good combination for success. For the Saturn aspect on this combination, um, good chance can be if this sign does um, lie about something or misrepresent something, it'll be caught within a few months. But again, that's like around 4 or 5 months away. K2's in the seventh house. Again, some problems for it in terms of truthfulness in relationships and business partnerships. For career life, though, overall, good for the sign. Good progress with slow progress. And financial gains will come, but they'll be delayed really and slow around December. For Taurus, Taurus has Rahu and Jupiter in the 12th house. That gives problems with friends who are not hanging out with the right kind of people. And what I mean by that is people who will essentially lie to you or cheat you. Um, Moon is in the second house, so it's good for money. It's good for financial growth. The Lord of the first is in the third house, so this makes this sign very confident, very sure they can get what it wants, and it will even pursue some things that it had passed up before. Now, again, keep in mind, a lot of people are experiencing romantic upsets because of where Venus is going retrograde and also Saturn's influence on it. So I'm not expecting people to feel like really, really happy about their life right now, but there is a certain amount of regret in terms of not being able to fulfill desires or ambitions for Taurus. Mercury and Mars are in the fourth house. There's a lot of focus on building and construction in the fourth house. So we have this combination there. And the fifth house has to do with children. So again, children will lie or be dishonest in this combination. K2's in the sixth. This sign does have to be careful about his health. There has been a recent uptick in COVID rates in certain states across the country, so that's something to be aware of. And Saturn's in the 10th house, good for career life for this particular um, rising sign. For Gemini, Moon is, I'm going to talk about the COVID uptick just for a second. I don't think it's going to manifest really, really strongly. I think it's essentially just the last burst. And I think a lot of it will tend to go away by the end of December. But there'll still be cases because you don't eliminate a disease um, that easily. But I think the uptick is essentially um, just a bit of panic caused by Rahu's last stages in Jupiter, with Jupiter and Ketu's last stages in Libra. All right, so for Gemini, Gemini has um, Moon in the first house, so there'll be a lot of focus on loss for this sign, and it'll bounce back within a couple of days. Sun and Venus are retrograde in the sign, so there's a lot of emotional anguish connected with the sign right now. A lot of desire, a lot of strong willfulness connected with this particular sign. Um, but again, like I said, a lot of nostalgia for the past or the way things were, and a lot of anxiety about the future for Gemini. Um, Third house has Mercury and Mars in it, so there's a good ability to make money from writing or from making up stories. The fourth house probably some minor arguments at home. Um, Fifth house has K2 in it. So again, this affects romantic life. This affects, so there's a feeling of either being disconnected or disappointed or depressed relationship wise. For this sign, seventh house Lord is in the 11th house with Rahu. So a lot of people are feeling, like I said, frustrated in long-term relationships who have this sign placement. And Saturn's aspecting Jupiter. So career-wise, even though you're doing well, there's still this feeling of not really forging ahead quite like you'd like to. For Cancer, Cancer has Sun and Venus, and I'm going to make sure the share is working. All right, so the share seems to be working. All right, so for Cancer, Sun and Venus are in the first house, so that puts a lot of emphasis on romantic feelings, feelings of the heart. And K2 passing through the sign can make people feel like they're either disconnected from their emotions or they're hurt emotionally. Uh, Mercury and Mars are also fairly angry about things, and they'll tell anything they can to get what they want right now. This is a good combination, though, for financial success because the Lord of the second house is in the first house, and Venus, Lord of the fourth, is in the first. So that's good for financial growth. But again, maybe a little bit too much time hiding out emotionally. And so you should really get out there and do things if you want to succeed this month, Cancer. For Saturn's in the eighth house, so again, it's kind of like underscores some detachment or dissatisfaction with relationship partners. Some fame or renown connected with position in the world for this sign. So again, it is a great time to take advantage of public attention, especially with the moon in the 12th house, especially in different countries. For Leo, sorry about that. Leo has Mercury and Mars in the first house. Is both a combination for wealth and a combination for career success. Okay, so it's it's what they call a Dana Yoga because the 11th and second house lords are in the first house, and a Raj Yoga because the fourth lord, Scorpio's lord of Mars, and the ninth lord are in conjunction in the first house. So that's a very good combination. And I think one of the things you'll see is this month will bring a lot of financial growth to the sign, a lot of financial benefit. It will still have enemies, though, because the Lord of the first house is in the 12th. It'll start to gain some recognition or some increased power, but there'll also be a lot of, I'm trying to think of the way to put it, a lot of accountability because the sun will be affected by Saturn. So this coming month will be really interesting for this sign because you'll have a lot, maybe even some domestic problems, but also because of Saturn in the seventh house, but also some problems connected with accountability. So both Jupiter and Saturn will be shining on Leo, and especially the Sun on Leo. So so um, that's interesting. It's both positive and negative because finances will improve, position will improve, but there'll also be this combination of optimism and hate directed at the sign. It's really, really fascinating. For third house has K2 in it, so it makes the sign relatively fearless. Saturn's in the seventh, So again, it'll give some problems with relationship partners, or relationship partners will seem to be cold or distant. Rahu and Jupiter are in the ninth. It gives difficulty with legal matters. And Moon is in the 11th. Some limited financial gains. Sun and Venus in the 12th. Not really good for luck through the legal system, though, to be honest with you. A lot of the retrogrades are why I think, or Venus retrograde, I think is why a lot of lawsuits, a lot of um, combat combative lawsuits are occurring in the United States, especially in political circles. Um, and let's see, for Virgo, Virgo has, so again, expect some losses because of legal matters or because of relationships um, with this particular sign placement for Leo. For Virgo, Virgo has no planets in the first house. The Lord of the first is Mercury. It's in the 12th house with Mars. So there'll be a lot of inner reflection for this sign. Not a lot of financial prosperity. Unfortunately, a lot of expenses connected with property. Ketu's in the second house. A lot of people have difficulty understanding the sign, or the sign will go a little bit unnoticed. Saturn's in the sixth. That gives some opposition, some legal matter opposition. Jupiter's in the eighth. And this particular combination gives hidden sources of wealth coming out, um, sometimes unethically, but hidden sources of wealth coming out. And Moon is in the 10th house, but also a feeling of being trapped, or relationship partners will feel trapped. Moon is in the 10th house. There'll be a shift in orientation and career matters, and you'll actually start to see career matters starting to improve over the next few weeks. And I did have a blip, so I want to make sure that didn't disconnect us. And Sun and Venus in the 11th house, good for financial gains for this sign. So there'll be expenses, but there'll also be financial gains or bargains. Okay. For Libra, Libra has K2 in the first house, Rahu in the 7th house, along with Jupiter. That phenomenon's been going on for a long time. So there's this feeling of having a lot of opportunities for relationships or business partnerships, but they're just a little bit frustrating, or the sign can't bring itself to really produce. And Moon's in the 9th house. It's about to change signs within about a day, and you'll start to see a lot more focus on career matters over the next few weeks for this sign, especially when Sun goes into Leo. Excuse me. Um, uh, roughly, well, 5 days away, roughly the 15th or roughly the 16th. And I think you'll also see the sign start to gain a lot of financial growth, but it'll be hard work because of the Saturn aspect. You may have to go back and redo things or recommit to things. Jupiter aspecting the 11th house, there'll be an increase in recognition, and which will be a relief for the sign, because K2 in the first house has been a little bit difficult for the sign in terms of recognition. Saturn's actually a good planet for Libra rising, as I've said before. So they'll actually bring longer term benefits, but they're slow. They require a lot of work. So this is not a bad week for Libra, but again, stay out of long-term relationships. Just advice I'm giving everybody right now, or else make it business, or make it with people in other countries, or make it something you can review at the end of December as to whether or not you want to stay involved in this particular enterprise. Definitely not a good time to get engaged. A somewhat okay period to get married, in which to get married, because it will also give a lot of enthusiasm to the marriage. Um, and there'll be a lot of devotion because Saturn's aspecting Jupiter, but I wouldn't start a long-term relationship right now. For so that's for Libra in general, and everybody, as for Libra in particular, but everybody in general. Scorpio has Mars and Mercury in the 10th house, very good for career life for this planet. Uh, gosh, Lagnas in the 11th house, which is good for recognition. I haven't spoken about that a lot, but I will in upcoming uh, um, videos. And also, we have the Lord of the second house is in the sixth, so this will give a lot of work connected with success, but there will be potential for success in meeting competitors. Moon is in the eighth, so there's a little bit of depression connected with the sign right now. Venus is in the ninth along with the sun. That's overall a good placement. It does give luck to this sign and also some luck in relationship matters. Mercury and Mars are placed in the 10th house of career, as we already said, so it should be a good career week for this sign. For Sagittarius, the moon is in the 7th house. It's waxing, or it's waning, excuse me, so it's losing strength. And I think one of the things you'll see with Sagittarius is there'll be a perception that this luck is starting to wane away. Now, that won't last for a long time. I think one of the things about this particular placement is that emotionally, or at least publicly, the sign will look like it's in trouble, but it'll recover within about a week. Saturn in the third, a lot of ambition. Jupiter in the fifth, a lot of problems with children. And Mars is in the ninth, along with Mercury. So generally good luck from relationship partners and from business associates. K2 is in the 11th. So again, don't trust your friends. Don't trust your allies. It's not a wise idea. For Capricorn, Capricorn has no planets in it. The Lord of Capricorn is in the second house. So this gives good financial success, good financial ambition. And again, it won't seem satisfactory, but you will have good financial luck. And the moon is in the sixth house, so there will be some short-term opposition from women. Venus and Sun are in the seventh house, so this is actually focuses a lot of attention on relationship life, and you'll have beautiful people attracted to you. But again, just this overall cautionary note that I'm sending people about relationships between now and December. Don't jump into anything during this period. For Mercury and Mars are in the eighth, so some potential for gain from real estate, but also some feeling of being locked away, not being able to do what you want to do. And finally, K2's in the 10th house, so career success will finally start to manifest for the sign, but slowly, increasingly over the next 3 months. For Aquarius, Aquarius has Mercury and Mars in the 7th house, so relationship partners will seem to be a little bit sneaky or devious, business partners as well. It's not just relationship partners. Jupiter's in the Saturn's aspecting Jupiter in the third. So that's actually a good combination for financial growth or financial success for this rising sign. And Moon is in the fifth. With this particular placement, the Moon is waning, is losing power, but there's still some good benefit left from previous activities. Also, for both for this sign and for Virgo, there are some health issues. So energy levels will seem to be low until about 5 days from now. And also, there'll be some unusual opportunities for luck. You'll have to keep your eyes open for them, though. And Mars rules the 10th house, so good for career life, good for financial gains from careers. And you may meet up with some people who you worked with before, and they'll actually change your career life. So not a bad week for Aquarius, but again, be a little bit careful relationship-wise. For Pisces, Pisces has no planets in the first house. The Lord of the first is in the second house with Jupiter, so this will give this sign more of an attraction towards spiritual growth, and but also more greed. Moon is in the fourth house. This particular combination, Moon is Lord of the fifth and the fourth, so it should give some financial gains to family members. That'll continue over the next few days. Mercury and Mars are in the sixth house. Good for competition, good for getting out there and meeting people and figuring out who your competition really is. Seventh house Lord is Mercury and Mars. So again, some deceit or some competitiveness with relationship partners or business partners. And Ketu's in the seventh house, so you'll have to watch out for your business partners or your relationship partners say. Now, again, this doesn't mean you have to leave a relationship or get out of a relationship. All relationships go through these phases, okay? But I think it's also a good idea to keep your eye on it. And so the relationship partner may not know they're being dishonest or being or taking risks when they shouldn't. Saturn's in the 12th. That's a combination for financial loss because of friends again. So again, for a few signs, watch out for friendships. For a few signs, watch out for relationship partners. But maintain ambition. This month will be challenging, but not impossible to get through. Okay, so let's go to the. Oh, by the way, if you like what I'm doing, or even if you don't like it, please join. Tell me how I can improve, and please access. Please join the group. We're up to over 600. I think we're at 632 members now, so that's really promising to me. I want to be much higher, obviously. Like it, please, and make some comments because YouTube wants to see engagement. And I'll keep on doing this, because I enjoy doing it, but it would be nice to get some money out of it eventually. Okay. So, and that way I can actually provide better quality view, animations, maybe a cast, maybe working against backgrounds like Philomena Clunk. But I think right now we're limited to looking at me with the backdrop of a bookcase. I do have a green screen, which I'm planning to use one of these days. But let's look at the map and see what's happening in Alaska and Hawaii. So Hawaii is between the Jupiter and Rahu line, so that makes sense in terms of what they've been through. So there's a lot of panic, a lot of loss connected with that line, with those two lines. It's a Saturn line running through southeast Alaska, and there's also a Mars line running through Idaho, Utah. Oh, that's right, I forgot about the killing of the man who threatened Biden's life. And there's also a Mercury line running through that and running straight through California. So I think you're going to see these parts of the world, especially. This is Nevada. My apologies. That's not Utah. Utah is right next to it. But I think you'll see a lot of attention on this part of the world over the next few days because of those that Mars Mercury line, and there'll be some dishonesty in reporting and some made up events. Moon is passing through uh, Wisconsin, down into Texas, down into Mexico, the furthest southern part of Mexico. Um, Also, you have Mars lines running through western Mexico. My apologies for slipping back there. But I think one of the things that indicates is there's possibly a fires over here too. Um, Moon is passing over here through Louisiana and New Mexico and off of Easter Island. Now, there's not much happening on Easter Island, so I don't know if that's going to be really significant, but there is, there is some economic downturn in these regions with the moon being waning as it is. There's nothing happening over here. The only thing we have really is a Rahu line. So again, that's kind of in keeping with scandal, and also in uh, down by Ecuador. It's not quite in Ecuador, but there'll be scandal connected with the governments um, in Peru, Ecuador, and also we have a Jupiter line coming up through here. So probably an attempt at a cover up. That's going through Chile and Argentina and Bolivia and Brazil and up through Guyana as well. There's a Venus sun line happening right in Brazil, so that does indicate to me trouble with the government, trouble with corruption in the government. The sun and retrograde Venus are not friends, and this indicates to me kind of an unstable government. And we have a Saturn line just on the nose of Brazil, so that's a little difficult. Um, I need to move more quickly. Mercury Mars lines ran through Iceland, Canary Islands, and Azores. And those three areas, while not really important to mainland Europe, actually are important to people from my local area. So they'll have to watch out for deceptive or maybe even um, um, erroneous coverage. There's not much happening in Western Europe right now. The closest line we have right now is a Rahu line passing through Germany, Norway. This doesn't negate what's happening in France. This line is awfully close to France, but it's hitting Germany and Italy more strongly, and also Libya. And there's also a moon line, so this does indicate Italy basically preparing to leave the EU, um, going up through uh, Romania, Czechoslovakia, Ukraine. So Ukraine is hurting right now. We see multiple lines heading to. We see a Jupiter line heading to Turkey, the middle of Turkey and Egypt, and down to Eastern Africa, all the way down to South Africa. And that does indicate some problems with the government down there. Um, Saudi Arabia has Venus lines running through it, Venus and Sun lines running through it, and also um, or, it's the last one. It's not a Saturn line. So we can be seeing some flooding in this part of the world over here. Let's some government dishonesty in Afghanistan and Pakistan, and teetering into India. And finally, over here, Rahu lines will panic in Cambodia and China right now. Okay. And also hitting Australia and New Zealand. So that's it for this week. I gotta go. I ran over a little bit. Thank you very much, folks. Have a blessed week, and I love you all. Thanks for watching.